Welcome back to another episode of DB Overthinking. Today I'm thinking about whether or not YouTube has a pyramid scheme problem. Before we get into all of that, I gotta give a quick shout out to my Plus Ultra Don't Fretters, my top tier supporters on Patreon, Peggy Lou Who and JJ Valdez. Patreon.com/DFretter if you want to help support the channel, get access to some bonus content, and join my private Discord server. If you become a free member of the Patreon, you get access to my monthly newsletter, Checking In. Ko-fi.com/DFretter if you want to help support the channel but you don't want another monthly subscription to manage. You could just like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell so you never miss another episode. This is going to be a slightly shorter video, I think / hope. Let's just jump right into section 1. What happened? What are we talking about? I was trying to think of ways to improve the channel. I was looking at other creators and I was looking at their channels and just trying to see if there was anything that I could learn from them. And I stumbled onto this video from like a year and a half to 2 years ago, and it sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole. This video was called YouTube Has a Pyramid Scheme Problem. It was by a creator named Morg Design. The video came out in August of 2024, and I believe that a bit of discourse, a little bit of drama was sparked by it. Not trying to start anything back up, but I did watch a couple of videos and it just got me thinking. In their video, Morg talks about 4 different content creators and talks about the 4 warning signs of a pyramid scheme. The creators that Morg discusses are Kat Liente, Ali Abdal, Katie Steckley, and Kelsey Rodriguez. I've never heard of 2 of those people, and I think I follow Katie on my photography Instagram account because I think her stuff popped up and she had some gear recommendations or something. And to be completely honest, those 3 are irrelevant to the conversation that I'm trying to have. Before we go any further, I just want to make it really clear that I'm not trying to start anything. I think that Morg is a really good creator and has some really good things to say. And so I'd say maybe go check out their channel if you're interested, but also please don't bother them. I've never had a video on YouTube go as far or as wide as Morg's video did, but when I was on TikTok, I'd gone viral a couple of times, and there's something about people kind of coming back to something from a year and a half to 2 years ago that's just kind of annoying. I don't want to bother this kid. It's just that their video and the videos that I watched afterwards got me thinking, and I want to talk about that. So in their video, Morg talks about the 4 warning signs of a pyramid scheme as laid out by the FTC. On that webpage, they also illustrate the difference between a pyramid scheme and an MLM. Can't talk today. It's also kind of late. I spent all day doing admin and doing some producer type stuff, and then wrote this video, and now I'm here in the studio filming it. And as Morg talks about the different warning signs, they use different creators as examples or shows how they're the way they do YouTube lines up with these 4 warning signs or whatever. So the 4 warning signs are: 1, promoters make extravagant promises about your earning potential. 2, promoters emphasize recruiting distributors for your sales network as a way for you to make real money. Maybe it's because I've been spending the last week or so kind of looking into this topic, but I keep seeing people making jokes about I made money from content creation by selling a course on how to make money from content creation. Number 3, promoters play on your emotions and use high pressure sales tactics. And the 4th and final warning sign is distributors have to buy more product than they would want to use or are able to resell. In their video, Morg notes that this challenges their argument the most because you don't necessarily have to buy product to stay involved in a content creator's channel, community, or whatever, and there's no bonuses or whatever. But then they did make the comparison that as you watch this content, the recommendations will send you more of this content. And instead of spending a bunch of money on useless products, you end up consuming a bunch of content with maybe useless information or bad advice. And it keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And you end up losing your time and attention instead of your money, which I think is a fair comparison. Going off script a little bit, but while I don't necessarily think that these different content creators perfectly line up as a pyramid scheme or their business models perfectly line up with pyramid schemes, there are definitely comparisons, and I would say they're almost more comparable to MLMs, sort of, but I think that that's a broader conversation, which I'll get to later in the video. I don't want my video to be a rehash of Morg's video. You should just go watch theirs if you're interested. But after watching Morg's video, I was recommended more videos specifically about Kelsey Rodriguez and art gurus and content coaches and stuff like that. And I guess Kelsey Rodriguez is a pretty big creator in the art YouTube space. I'm not really in that space, but I do watch a few art YouTubers, and I have watched Kelsey's videos before. So some of the other videos I watched were like, some people were going harder on Kelsey and be like, Kelsey Rodriguez exposed. She's not a real artist. She's a fraud. She's a scammer. And then there are other people like defending Kelsey's honor and saying like, well, I am an artist and I appreciate the information that Kelsey's like shared for free, and like it's given me hope for about maybe one day being an artist full time and all that stuff. Listen to a podcast episode and watch a YouTube video about the content creator economy, or like the MLMification of YouTube, which wasn't necessarily specifically about being an artist. It's a little bit broader, but I still think that that conversation was relevant to my research. I'll put all this stuff, and I'll put what I think is relevant down below. I know usually it'd be like, Substack articles or whatever. I didn't read any Substack this week. Anyways, moving on to section 2, sell and hope. I think if you've ever thought about starting a YouTube channel or becoming a content creator, you've probably consumed some content about creating content. And I think a pretty common piece of advice is like, if you want to be successful as a content creator, you need to either be entertaining, inspiring, or educational. And in my experience, and just from what I've observed, you don't necessarily have to be educational, because YouTube is not an educational platform. It's an entertainment machine. I'm going to go off script again. Because I've mentioned it, I feel like I'm going off script again. Because I've mentioned it before, I feel like it's necessary to mention, like, I do make some of my money as a creative person from facilitating workshops, teaching classes in schools, and I don't necessarily make money, but I do mentor some younger artists as well. My content isn't really about any of that work, other than I think when I was reviewing books or talking about like stuff that happens in the book world, I would say like, oh, I say this to my students all the time or something. I kind of just like provide like anecdotes or whatever because it's relevant to my life. But I don't want to be like, I don't want to try to offer a course ever. Like, one of the things that actually kind of sparked this video was when I went to post my last video, which didn't go great for me. There was an opportunity on YouTube Studio to post a course, and I was like, oh, we've gone too far, bro, because not every content creator is an educator. And when I think of like educational platforms like, I guess, Lynda or Skillshare, I think there's a vetting process. I don't know exactly because, never used them. But Skillshare, if you're watching, you want to sponsor me, let's talk, And I also think that masterclass is kind of funny because it's like, these are people who are well known for doing a thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're good teachers. Teaching is an underrated skill or an underappreciated skill, but it is a skill. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember in high school when I was looking at different art schools to go to, that I didn't end up going to any, but when I was looking, one of my art teacher from my high school told me to look for the schools with the best teachers, not the best artists, because the best artists may not know how to teach. And one of the dangers, and danger feels like a big word here, but one of the risks of like art gurus and content coaches or whatever you want to call them is that like they can use their vanity numbers, which is like number of subscribers, number of followers, number of views, as like evidence of their expertise, but they're not experts. They're just entertaining to watch. Or at least they may not necessarily be experts. They might be. There's definitely content creators who are professors, who are just sharing their knowledge or talking about their research. I'm not saying everybody who has a big following is a dum-dum. I'm just saying that their follower number isn't necessarily concrete evidence or verification of their knowledge or their ability to pass on that knowledge. It's kind of meta and kind of ironic that in making this video, I am starting to make content about making content. But if you're going to make content, your content has to add some kind of value to the viewer. You know what I mean? What do you have to offer? Are you funny? Are you sexy? Are you inspiring? Sure, what I have to offer through my content is like background noise while people cook or fold their laundry or work on their art homework or whatever. I think for a lot of art gurus and content coaches, which is what I call them, they offer hope, because a lot of creative types love the idea of being a working artist. At least I do, and a fair amount of my colleagues and peers do. I've wanted to be a working artist my whole life. I remember when that meme, like, what's your dream job? Oh, darling, I don't dream of labor, was like going around. I actually didn't really understand that, because I've dreamt of meaningful labor since I was a little kid. You know what I mean? Like, I was kind of naive, and I just thought that everybody, like all adults, liked their jobs, which is crazy to think about now. But under capitalism, we don't all get to do the work that we feel we're meant to do, or that the work that makes us feel like, or work that we derive like personal meaning from, you know what I mean? Because that work usually doesn't pay the bills. And when it comes to like the arts and stuff like that, the ones who get to do their art for a living are kind of the lucky ones, or at least that's how it's that's the narrative. And not every artist feels that way. You know, there's a lot of artists out there, especially like in the Don't Fret community, who are very content to just do their art as a hobby and keep the capitalistic pressure off of their work. But for the artists that do, who want to like, you know, make a living selling their paintings or writing their books or making films, music, telling jokes, whatever, like there's no linear path to success. And that can be discouraging or overwhelming. And then somebody pops up on your feed and they're like, well, I can show you the way. I can show you the world. I can't hit that note. This is why I never made it in music. That was so fucking dumb. I'm so tired. But somebody just pops up on your feed and they're like, oh, I can show you the way. Like, I figured out how to be successful and make X $1,000 per month as a full-time artist, whatever. So if you just watch my videos, subscribe to my channel, maybe buy a course, I'll tell you how I did. And even then, they don't usually say, I'll tell you how I did it. They say, this is how you do it. Because prescriptive advice, I think, is a little bit more sensational online, and it's about being sensational, which I'll get into later in the video. But I feel like this is where the first and the third warning signs kind of pop up for me. It like big promises of this sort of like idyllic, romanticized, vloggable life as an artist. You know, you wake up in the morning and you got so many plants in your studio apartment, and you make coffee in the slowest, sexiest way possible, and then you paint, and your paint space is really clean for some reason. Sell you on this idea, and maybe they get you to consume a bunch of their content, take their advice, take their course, or, you know, buy their templates for something or other. I don't know. But I feel like if they can like advertise or show this like idyllic life, that's how you get people interested in and how they can get there too, you know what I mean? One of my favorite comedians, Logan Nielsen, once said, it's crazy what you can get people to do when they have dreams, which hurt. In the creator economy videos that I watched, there's less about art and more about just like making content for making content's sake. Content creation is presented as something really accessible and really easy to do, like anyone can do it. And I don't necessarily think that that's true. Like, not everyone can be a successful content creator. And I'm not just saying that because I am not a successful content creator. But I do think you need to have like the right look. You need to have a lot of luck. And I think you need to have something to say as well. And when I see content that's like, anyone can do this, it's really easy. You don't even need a lot of followers to make thousands of dollars off of content creation. It just kind of rubs me the wrong way because it feels like not realistic. It gets people's hopes up. And that's when the shit feels kind of scammy to me. One of my moderators, Mo, and I were talking about this, and they pointed out that there's a lot of similarities between like this type of content and manosphere content, where they're sort of like preying on, or at least appealing to, people's like insecurities or they're feeling lost. Like with the manosphere, it's like young men, and with art gurus, it's like quote unquote starving artists. It's like creating problems, offering solutions to the problems they created, and then positioning themselves as like authority figures. I'm not trying to say like Kelsey Rodriguez is like the Andrew Tate of art. That's a crazy thing to say. I don't feel that way at all. I don't think that she's a scammer running a pyramid scheme. I don't think that she's like doing the finger pyramid of evil contemplation while money is rolling into her account. I think that Kelsey, Katie, and other content creators like them are just following the views and following the money, which is the name for Section 3. I think a lot of content creators, especially ones whose content is sort of rooted in a creative field, like being an artist, being a writer, being a filmmaker, whatever, kind of start out with a lot of hope. Like they want to post their art hopefully go viral, and then they'll have a career in the creative field they want to work in. And that's the lie that big tech sells you. Like, you can have a career, it just takes a little bit of virality, and then, you know, you're Shawn Mendes, you're the Paul brothers, you're Curtis Connor, something like that. That's not true. Like, those are exceptions, not the rule. Maybe that's its own video. I don't know. Whenever I say maybe that's another video, no one ever comments like, yeah, do that shit. So I never know. I feel like a lot of these art gurus or content coaches kind of stumble into the genre about making content, or whatever. Like, when it comes to making content, you got to do what works. You're incentivized to follow the views, and like the way algorithms work, the more you do what works, the further you're going to reach. The narrative or the sentiment is like, you follow the views, and the views lead to opportunities. This would probably be more relevant in a different video, but I really do think that this kind of depends on what you go viral for, and if you go viral in a positive way, because I know plenty of people who are like musicians who've gone viral for just telling a story about dating, and then no one gives a shit about their music. Or like, I've gone viral for just having a sad childhood, and no one bought my book from that. No one came to see a comedy show from that, nothing like that. So I don't really think that every single art guru or content coach is running a pyramid scheme. I don't think they're nefarious scammers. I think a lot of them are just trying to play the content game and win. Clickbait titles, attention-grabbing thumbnails, it's all just trying to get your attention. These creators found something that works, and now they're trying to make it work for them. I think we're at a point where a lot of people are just trying to find ways to monetize and commodify anything they can do. And for some of them, that's their knowledge of how they did something. Does anybody remember Jake Paul's like Team 10,000? That felt really scammy too. And I remember, I think it was Drew Gooden did a couple of videos on that and pointed out like, this dude doesn't know how to be a successful content creator. He just became one. One felt pretty scammy because there was no valuable knowledge, and it was definitely like the last thing. He's like, how can I squeeze more money out of my young, impressionable audience? Because they'd already done like music, live shows, you know, clothing, a book. What else is there left, you know? But I do think that some of the art gurus and content coaches do have some information that is helpful for you as if you're trying to run a small art business, or you're trying to figure out how to make your content better, you know, especially when it comes to like gear. I think especially when it comes to like tools, these people can be really helpful, you know, like which email list platforms are helpful. Kelsey Rodriguez had a video about like, what kind of content creator are you? And I actually found that really interesting, and I'm trying to adopt a different workflow for making episodes of this series, whether you want to call it a series of YouTube videos or a podcast, whatever, I don't care, and how to like make short form out of it as well, because I've never been good at doing short form content. And I've used different fonts and like hex codes from recommendations from Adrian Purr. I use a microphone that was a recommendation from him. So I guess what I'm saying is like, this genre of content is kind of like a blackberry bush. You know, there's a lot of thorns, but there's some pretty sweet stuff in there too. So section 4, does YouTube really have a pyramid scheme problem? Short answer is yeah, kind of. I don't really see it the same way that Morg does, because I don't see art gurus or content coaches as like the tops of their own respective pyramids. I think they're just a level or two higher than you and me. I think big tech is at the top, and creators like Emma Chamberlain, the Paul brothers, James Charles are the next ones down. And they're the success stories that big tech will kind of offer you. It's like, oh, if you make content, maybe you can be like them. And that gets people creating more and more content for them to use to incentivize people to stay on their platforms for all this sweet, sweet content. Content creators below the ones that kind of end up breaking into the mainstream would be the ones who get to make stuff that they actually want to make. And then I'd say like content coaches and art gurus are kind of like below that. And then there's regular folks just trying. I don't know if that's like I don't know if that's quite right, but that's just how I see it. And again, I don't really think that it's exactly like a pyramid scheme or an MLM, because there isn't necessarily like products that you have to buy or that you're responsible for selling. The thing and the content that I consumed that made me want to create my own content I didn't really feel like recruited. I felt more inspired. Like I watched a lot of commentary YouTube. I thought it was kind of funny, and it was like I would listen to it while I was doing stuff. And I was like, oh, I want to do that too. That seems kind of fun. So like I want to give it a try. And then I kind of backed myself into the corner of a bookstore, and I can't seem to get out of it. But I don't think it's exactly like a pyramid scheme. I don't think it's exactly like an MLM, but it is pretty similar, especially when you see it. Like especially when it's like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, they dangle this carrot of like your dreams coming true. And I've talked about this before, to get you to make all this content for free, or to even get you to buy a bunch of shit to make the content or whatever. I remember talking about wanting to buy lights because like there were no overhead lights in my apartment, and like the lighting situation isn't great here, and somebody like took immense issue with me for that. And they're like, oh, I remember the days when YouTube, like we didn't even use cameras. We were just using webcams, and everyone wants to create their own studio now, and it's all bullshit or something like that. You're a consumerist asshole. And I was like, okay, take it easy. So not only do they get you to work for free and then use the stuff you made to incentivize other people to stay on their platforms to keep their attention, to pump out more ads or whatever, they can also get you to buy shit like cameras specifically meant for content creation, microphones. Isn't it crazy that ever since I moved, there's just so many more sirens than there used to be? You know, if you watch art YouTube, or you watch content creators making content about this is how I run my art business, or like a day in the life of me, a full-time artist or whatever, and you enjoy the vibes or whatever, you like a studio vlog, you like watching someone make coffee real slow and then paint while they do a voiceover talking about something, dope. Enjoy that. And if you enjoy watching the more kind of talking head, technical, this is how you make money as a full-time artist type content, I do think that there's probably things you can learn. And there's probably a lot of variables as to like whether or not that works for you, or whether or not that was good advice. I don't know. I can't vet every single one. But I do think that it just calls for like discernment and critical thinking. It's important to like ask yourself, like, what am I gaining out of this content? And what is this content asking of me? And if that's not like a fair compromise to you, then, you know, don't watch it. Find someone else or figure it out for yourself. Like I would never pay $2,000 for a one-on-one coaching session. I wouldn't pay money for a course, I don't think. You know, like I don't make a ton of money off of my creativity, but everything I learned, I would learn for free. Road to success looks different for everyone, and I don't think anyone can guide you down a path that you need to forge for yourself. Yeah, I think that's everything I had for this video. I thought it was going to be short, but bro, I just can't stop talking, man. It's crazy. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Patreon.com/dfred if you want to support the channel, get some bonus content, join the private Discord server. Kodashfly.com/dfred if you want to support the channel but don't want another monthly subscription. Or just like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. My name is D. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. Peace out.